pulled up here. I can minimize this so we see the full thing. Draft picks end up being at number 11, Olu Fashanu. Malachi Corley at pick 65. Braylon Allen, running back out of Wisconsin, at 134. Jordan Travis out of Florida State. Isaiah Davis, running back, South Dakota State. Quantez Stiggers from the CFL. And Jalen Key, defensive back out of Alabama. So when you take a look at this draft class, Anthony, what are some of your biggest takeaways?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways that I have is the fact that the Jets were able to land a wide receiver without trading up for one. I thought that was a huge win for them, landing Malachi Corley all the way at pick number 65. There was a lot of speculation going into day two. Maybe they'd trade up, try and get somewhere into the 50s or the 40s and draft a wide receiver. They stood pat at 65, and they landed a wide receiver talent who I think is very dynamic and a really exciting player. I know really high on a lot of people's draft boards. So that's one of my favorite takeaways there. But overall, a lot of offensive talent. You know, they really loaded up on the offensive side of the ball. They've got a developmental quarterback in Jordan Travis. Braylon Allen is a solid running back prospect out of Wisconsin. And, of course, Malachi Corley, who I mentioned, and Olu Fashanu. So a lot of offensive talent. I think that the Jets made it a point to prioritize that side of the ball, and I think that was the right strategy.
Yeah, I like the early lean on the offensive side of the ball to get this draft going. And then, I'll get to some of the things the Jets did on day three in a second. But the last time we spoke, it was only after the first round. And I liked the offensive line pick. We both did, but kind of came away with the Jets need to get a receiver here. And they moved up briefly. They didn't jump up into the second round. They moved up to the first pick of the third round to get Malachi Corley and didn't really have to give up a whole lot to get up there. And I was surprised by this. They had supposedly they had Malachi Corley as their fourth wide receiver in this draft, which I don't know if I in particular am that high on Malachi Corley, but I think he's going to be a really unique weapon for this offense. I mean, his nickname is the Yak King, yards after the catch king. And for Aaron Rodgers quarterbacking this team, I just think we're going to see a lot of check downs and screens and just trying to get the ball in Corley's hands and have him do some things yards after the catch to add a different, dynamic to this offense the Jets have.
Yeah, and that's really the word for Malachi Corley is dynamic. He is a player that makes plays in space, as you mentioned, the Yak King. You just want to get the ball in his hands. You want to scheme together ways to get him the ball in space and let him go to work. And once you do that, his contact balance is elite. It's really hard to bring him down. And one of the points that was made throughout the offseason while people were evaluating Malachi Corley is with the banning of the hip drop tackle. How do you bring this guy down? Malachi Corley becomes an even more dynamic player at the next level than he was in college because there's one less way that you can actually take down Malachi Corley. He's already tough as it is to take down with no hip drops. He's going to be really tough to stop. So I think that he is going to be a very exciting player. I'm curious to see how Hackett and the Jets get him involved and what his role and usage is going to be early on. I don't think that he's going to be that secondary outside wide receiver maybe that the Jets were looking for, but as a guy who rotates in, makes plays as a gadget player early on in his career, and then maybe develops into a better receiver and becomes a more complete package down the line. I think there's a lot of potential with Malachi Corley, and it is a really exciting draft pick.
Yeah, and something else I wanted to add on Corley that you got me thinking with the banning of the hip drop tackle. I wonder if they see a role for him as a returner with some of these new kick return rules that the NFL is implementing. They had Xavier Gipson do it last year, and he had a huge moment in the first game of the season against Buffalo, but then was kind of quiet after that. He was fine, and if he ends up being the returner again this year, I don't think anyone's complaining, but I think the upside with there's more upside with Malachi Corley, who they took at 65. And I'm kind of just curious if they're going to end up utilizing him in a special teams role. So not only could he be kind of that gadget guy, I know a high-end comp, Deebo Samuel for him. I would love if the Jets able to find a player like that. But even if he's kind of just, a gadgety kind of receiver weapon in your offense and a good returner for you, I think that's a hit for a third round pick.